everybody, welcome to our downtown studios. I'm your host, John Ramdeen, and this is Fight News Now Extra. Robin Black will join me in a bit to talk about some of MMA's most intriguing stories. In the news today, Canada will host a few UFC events in 2016. CM Punk's UFC debut is delayed, and a former UFC champion contemplates retirement. According to reports, Canada is scheduled to hold 3 UFC events in 2016. Tom Wright, the Director of Operations for Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, told the media that Toronto and Calgary are on their radar, and they are considering a return to the Maritimes. UFC debuted in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan this past August, with Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira headlining the event. Former WWE star CM Punk will have to wait for his mixed martial arts debut. According to his head coach, Duke Rufus, Punk sustained a shoulder injury and will not be ready for another 6 to 10 months. The Chicago-based fighter is scheduled to see a physician in the next week to determine when he will be able to resume training. The former pro wrestling star was hoping to make his Octagon debut by the end of 2015. Former UFC light heavyweight champion Quinton Jackson is considering hanging up the gloves for good. Rampage was on the MMA Hour, where he stated that his fight against Fabio Maldonado in Montreal earlier this year was probably his last. Jackson is dealing with legal issues stemming from his contract with his former employer, Bellator. Jackson feels that the Viacom-owned promotion is going to keep things tied up in court, which will prevent him from fighting and earning money. Happy to be joined by my good friend, Mr. Robin Black, and you said you have something you got to get off your chest.
Oh, yeah. The other weekend, Johnny Hendricks missed weight. Unprofessional, uncool. Bad.
Go to the Underground, see the thread.
Yeah, well, actually, it's great. My friends over at the Underground pointed out, made a very good point. You know, there were some solid points that we made.
Yeah.
But I called him a lazy prick.
Yeah.
And that is very lazy to do. It's very lazy and it's very prickish to call somebody names. I think my points were accurate. I think my points about, the guy being way too large, being obsessed with weight cutting, focusing too much on that.
And that it was unfair to Tyron Woodley.
Unfair to Tyron Woodley, unfair to the fans. And if you happen to watch our show, the one thing that always irks me, and lots of other people, lots of big fans, is missing weight. There are consequences for missing weight. That includes being fined if you still fight or losing the fight. And one of them is public ridicule. It's always long been that way. But name calling's uncool. So although it was very unprofessional for him to miss weight and end up costing that fight for all of us, I want to apologize to you, Mr. Hendricks. That was really rude of me. It was lazy and prickish of me to call you names.
Fine. I guess that means I have to apologize to former UFC middleweight champion Rich Franklin for calling him a dick. But he was. The reality was, when he came into our studio for the fight with David Loiseau, UFC 58, he really couldn't care less. And the fact is that we were showing UCC TKO fights, which he was a part of that organization, and I thought he would have been a little more enthused. Like, this was not just some morning show. This is a channel dedicated to combat sports, but didn't make a difference.
Very interesting detail. I don't know why we just want to be better people. To be honest with you, our bosses here at Fight Network, everybody here at Fight Network, they never filter us. They have given us incredible freedom here, and it's something we've been very proud of, that we can talk openly. But you got to be better people. This is what we're after. But isn't that an interesting thing about Rich Franklin? You don't think about that from these fighters, but they go through the world leaving an impression. And we have seen, like you said, this is a 24-hour dedicated combat sports channel that has been putting Rich and the business over for a long time, but he could have had the worst day that he'd had that week. He could have just got some terrible news. Who knows? And that is one of the things that celebrities, athletes, any of these people deal with. I have seen people go, oh, it's great to meet you, and then their agent is pulling them away, and it's like, oh, look at Mr. Big over here, doesn't have time to sign my autograph. It's a tough challenge for these guys to go through.
I agree 100%. So I'm just, the second and third time I met him, I wonder why it was the same way. That's all I was saying.
Fair enough.
You were critical about Fedor in the past, and Fedor looking to make his return to mixed martial arts coming up at the end of the year, and word on the street is that his opponent could be Mr. Pat Barry, former UFC veteran, I guess Bellator veteran, Glory veteran. Is this something that intrigued you as a combat sports fan?
Kind of. I mean, Fedor has always been this mythological creature, and I didn't always necessarily buy into it, although later, the more I learned about really analyzing fighting, really trying to understand what was actually happening in the moments, the more impressed I became with Fedor. Now, I kind of feel bad for Fedor because people are throwing him under the bus. They're like, oh, Fedor sucks, Fedor's a bum. Fedor is not a bum. Fedor does not suck. At a certain point in your life, you're a human being out there to make the kind of money that you can make, build the life for yourself, take care of your health, take care of your family. And this guy, while juggling all those things or spinning all those plates, says, I'd rather make a couple $1 million fighting in Japan as the main event where they'll celebrate me against a mid-level opponent. And Pat Barry is going to produce exactly the kind of fight Fedor's willing to have, exactly the kind of fight I think we're going to enjoy.
And there was a lot of talks out there, people saying, oh, hopefully it's Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz fights at heavyweight against one of the greatest of all time. And they asked Tito Ortiz, Tito's like, no, Fedor's not the greatest of all time. If anybody is going to have that honor, it's got to go to Jon Jones. And I think you and I both agree that whether you look at his private life and some of the things we know that is around Jon Jones and some of the bad decisions he's made, the fact is when you're objective about things and you look at the magic that he's created inside of the cage, and you have to pick somebody. Is it Anderson Silva? Is it George St. Pierre? Is it Royce Gracie? Is it Ken Shamrock? I think Jon Jones, right now at this stage of mixed martial arts history, is probably the greatest fighter to ever compete in the sport.
Yeah, there's an argument for Demetrius Johnson when you're just looking at pure skills. But when you look at just Jon Jones, just the moments in the cage, nothing else, it is going to be very hard to deny that. When you look at the way that he has been able to find ways to win, beat guys at their own game, walking into positions that guys are the best, the way he's free in there, all of those things is an argument that he is the greatest of all time. And
Cormier, Gustafsson, Rampage, Machida,
Shogun,
Belfort, Shogun, Rashad. Really, the list goes on. And for him to defeat these guys and look as good as he has in the past against some of the greatest fighters that have ever competed in the sport, he's got to be considered that.
And then don't just take the moments in the cage, but take all that other stuff. Imagine being able to do that after cutting up David Lee Roth-sized rails. Maybe I got to be apologizing to Jon Jones for that one tomorrow. But in my opinion, Jon, we don't care what's all that stuff outside of there. Hopefully you got that taken care of, because I can't wait to see you fight, man.
I can't wait to see the way the next couple of months unfolds for 2015. Who will Fedor's opponent be? I'm interested, and I'm interested in seeing the return of Jon Jones. That's it for us. Don't go anywhere. More FNE is coming your way.